What's going on, everybody? This is Ultimate Device Vids, and today in this video we're going to be doing a speed test between the iPhone XR and the iPhone 6s. With the iPhone XR being more affordable than Apple's newest iPhone models, yet still having that full screen design, I think a lot of people using older devices that are still supported by iOS 14, like the 6s, would be interested to see these two devices compared head-to-head in a speed test. We're going to be doing a variety of tests, including a boot up test, app launching tests, a biometrics test, a Geekbench test, and an Antutu benchmark test. With the XR on the right and the 6s on the left, first things first, I want to show you guys that both of these are running the latest iOS version as of recording this video, being 14.3, as you can see. They're also both running at peak performance capacity in regards to battery health as well. Let's begin with the boot up test. So we're going to power both iPhones off, and they're both connected to a power strip, so we're going to turn the power strip on, powering both of the iPhones on at the same time. And I'm not going to cut anything out of this portion of the video. I want you guys to see the uncut boot up time. Now definitely keep in mind, as always, that a boot up test is not representative of how a device is going to perform in all areas. It's just interesting to see. So as you can see here, the 6s actually boots up a split second before the XR. As usual, let's move on to some app launching tests. So starting off with some lighter applications, you can see here the XR is definitely a little bit quicker than the 6s, as to be expected, but you can see there it's a very small difference here. And the same trend basically continues here throughout the test. If there is a difference, it's really not that big of a deal. This is something that Apple has done a good job with in the last few years, not only giving software update support for older devices for a long time, but also keeping the performance quite well. I mean, the 6s here was released all the way back in 2015, the XR being released in 2018, and you can see here both of these devices are performing very similar, both 100% usable in 2021, and once again both running the latest iOS version as well. Now, all of this being said, the 6s will definitely lose support for software updates sometime in the near future, just considering the age of the device, but you know, the point being is that it still performs quite well. And you're going to see here with some of the heavier applications like San Andreas and Asphalt 9 in a little bit, the 6s is a little bit noticeably behind, but it's still something that you probably wouldn't even notice in day-to-day life. It's just because we're comparing them head-to-head. I always like to make that clear in this type of video. So once again, as you're seeing, San Andreas is loading a little bit quicker on the XR than the 6s, and that's also reflected in this loading sequence for the game here as well. And alright, we'll go ahead and move on to the next application in the test, being Asphalt 9. So Asphalt 9 does take a very long time to load, so we're going to speed through here until one of them opens it first, of course, no doubt it being the XR, and then we're going to speed through a little more until the 6s opens it as well. And I also included a few stock applications, and as you can see, performing absolutely great on both devices. Next up is the consecutive app launching test. So with both app switchers cleared, let's go ahead and begin. So the same trend basically is reflected in the consecutive app launching test as was reflected in the previous app launching test. As you can see, the 6s is usually just a little bit behind the XR, but keeping up pretty well when you consider the age difference between these two devices. Now, of course, with the heavier stuff, the XR definitely does have an advantage, but it's not nearly as big of a deal as you might think. But the reality is most people using either of these devices probably aren't going to be throwing humongous CPU-intensive tasks at their device on a daily basis. And the fact that older iPhones hold up so well over the years often makes the reason for a user to upgrade their phone not necessarily just performance, but you know, other factors like the overall design of the phone. People might want a full screen design versus the standard older home button design. And of course, a variety of other factors like camera, battery life, etc. So it's definitely really nice to see that Apple, again, does such a good job at maintaining their older devices. And alright, so Minecraft is now loading on both devices here. And wrapping up Minecraft on the XR, we're going to go ahead and move on to San Andreas on the XR. Meanwhile, the 6s is still loading up Minecraft. Alright, so starting up a game in San Andreas on the XR. Get that loaded up. And then after this is finished loading, we're going to move on to the final application in the test, being Asphalt 9. So wrapping up San Andreas here on the XR, we're going to close it down and open up once again Asphalt 9 and get that loaded up as well. And with the XR wrapping up the test, we're going to speed through here until the 6s finishes. As you saw there, it took a really long time to load Minecraft on the 6s for whatever reason. And as I said earlier, you know, you definitely see a little bit of a bigger gap with the slightly heavier applications. Next, we're going to do a little bit of a RAM management management check and see which applications these devices were able to keep open in the background that we just opened. Now, of course, we didn't really do anything too CPU intensive or strenuous, so the main goal of this is just to see if you're going to have any issues on a daily basis with RAM management. And you can see here both devices did a very good job. And just to let you guys know, the 6S has 2 GB of RAM and it has the A9 processor, and the 10R has 3 GB of RAM with the A12 processor. So the 10R was actually able to keep every single application open in the background, as you can see, while the 6S was able to keep everything open except for Grand Theft Auto San Andreas for whatever reason. But all in all, I was definitely quite impressed with RAM management on both, especially with the 6S, just considering the age of the device. Next is biometrics, so unlocking the 10R with Face ID and the 6S with Touch ID at the same time. As you can see, both were extremely quick, and as usual, Touch ID was a little bit quicker than Face ID. Next, we're going to load a few web pages in Safari real quick, so we're just going to head over to apple.com on both, and you can see there the 6S was a little bit behind the 10R, and we'll just load another page on apple.com as well, and once again the same trend continues, with both performing quite well, again with the 6S just being a little bit behind the 10R. Next, we're going to run a Geekbench test, so we're going to open up the application here and run a benchmark on both. And as expected, a pretty considerable jump in the numbers from the 6S to the 10R for both the single core and multi-core scores. And of course, we're also going to run an Antutu benchmark as well, and same thing to report here with a pretty considerable jump in the numbers. So at the end of the day, both of these devices perform quite well to this day. As I said earlier, the driving factor that makes people want to upgrade their iPhone in today's world often isn't performance, just as once again these older devices still perform so well. It's other factors like battery life, camera, display, etc. Now of course, sometime in the very near future, the 6S will most likely stop getting new software updates, but the point being is that it still performs quite well for daily tasks. If you guys use either of these phones, let me know down below in the comment section how the speed and performance of your device has been. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.